January 2011. I was the CFO at D. Merton, a very profitable high-tech company with revenues of over 400 million. D. Merton's fortunes had been boosted a few years earlier when it acquired the S1 technology behind a revolutionary radar system. The launch of S1A, our first system, had surpassed all expectations and was followed by 2 more successful versions. I was preparing in January 2011 for the first board meeting to be chaired by Roger Tillman. Roger had been appointed to succeed our long-standing chairman, who had retired through ill health. We'd all been surprised, as we'd expected an appointment from within the existing board. Richard Dalton had arrived as CEO 2 years previously, just before the launch of S1C. While the board had been criticised for the size of Richard's remuneration package, he had delivered. Impressive sales for S1C, solid results from other divisions, and a string of strategic acquisitions. His deferred share bonuses meant that Richard's focus was still on long-term share price growth. At the end of 2010, D. Merton's rivals had launched a range of new systems. But our next generation S1D system promised to be a game changer and was only a few months away from release. We thought everything was in place for a successful future. But how wrong we all were.
I met last week with Chris Perry, the company's new head of IT. He was concerned about the robustness of the company's defences against attack. Given the value in our innovative designs...
But my committee considered the results of penetration testing only a few months ago, just before Chris arrived. And this didn't raise any significant issues.
But the firm doing the testing was the same firm that designed the defences, and the testing had been confined to the main design database.
Wouldn't that be the main target of any cyber attack?
Of course. But attackers will look for any weak access point across our system.
So what are you proposing?
I think we need an independent assessment of the company's defences to cyber attack across all our systems. As the lead partners rotating off, will your committee be considering whether TYSL should be reappointed as auditors next year? Might make sense to freshen things up a bit after such a long mandate.
Yes, it's all in hand. I've already asked for a proposal. Hello.
Just give her time. Liz thought she'd be appointed chair. And while she has her supporters, including me, the nominations committee thought you were the stronger candidate. She just thinks with this cyber thing that you're already questioning her judgment.
Why do the auditors think that there's an impairment trigger?
The fallen S1A sales. I've been asked to produce a spreadsheet showing cash flow forecasts justifying the current value.
But Tom is currently negotiating a couple of big deals to install S1A systems.
That'll help. But the current value can only be supported by including revenue from S1B and S1C. The auditors have queried whether that's appropriate given how much the technology has been developed away from the original. With S1A revenue only, we're looking at a material write-down.
Well, I hope you push back hard. We can't take another big hit like that. We only just hit our profit target.
I'm hardly the right person to argue how much of the original technology is used.
Well, shall I get one of our tech boys to give them the assurance they need?
Does anyone here know what an orange peel paraboloid is? No, neither did I. Apparently all 3 systems had one, demonstrating their similarities. I don't mind admitting that I left that meeting completely baffled, and I don't believe I was the only one.
So, without including S1B and S1C sales in the forecast, a significant impairment would have been required?
Correct. The forecast revenue for S1A looks generous to me, given last year's sales and the new models on the market.
There appears to be a good market among poorer countries that can't afford the latest models. The company is currently negotiating multiple S1A sales with 2 smaller countries.
How definite are these deals?
I've seen signed letters of intent.
Not binding then. But I guess it comes down to how comfortable you are that the newer systems rely on the original technology.
The technology is pretty complex, but we met with the head of technology and came away with sufficient assurance that the S1B and S1C systems are still built around the original technology.
Well, I'm not sure any of us are in a position to second-guess the experts or your judgment that there's a sufficient link.
Someone's in a good mood. Did you hear? He's standing for senior partner. I'm told he's got a good chance. How did you find your first audit?
Oh, too many long nights, too many spreadsheets.
Tell me about it.
I was wondering, how did that issue get resolved in the end? Those payments to Primantel that I showed you?
I mentioned them to Patrick. He met with Richard and got the assurances he needed. I think Richard confirmed that Primantel's engagement had ended.
Was Primantel not a related party?
Well, you told me that the sister had resigned before Primantel was engaged. And Richard told Patrick that none of his family had any continuing interest in Primantel. Enough about that. We're not here to talk about work.
Has everyone had a chance to read the consultant's report? Chris, can you introduce this, please?
Thank you, Roger. The consultants have carried out over 20 different pen tests, analysing a range of vulnerabilities, including browser exploits, DOS attacks, phishing...
Just the findings and the options, please.
Okay, sure. The tests have identified 50 serious flaws in our defences across all systems, including the design database. We're particularly vulnerable because we have 4 different IT systems running within the group, inherited from our acquisitions, and each of them has different levels of protection.
And there are 2 options.
Yes. The first option is a replacement of the central parts of our existing infrastructure. This would take 9 months and involve the outsourcing of some key IT functions.
Won't outsourcing weaken our defences further?
No, not if we use reputable providers and are careful about what functions we outsource. The second option is upgrading our existing infrastructure. This would happen over a period of about 2 to 3 years.
No outsourcing?
Correct, but this is a patch rather than an overhaul. Aside from the cyber risk, we have a pressing need to unify our systems.
We have funding issues.
Option 2 spreads the cost and the cash flow impact over a longer period, so it's manageable. Option 1 is more expensive and involves a big upfront cash outlay. As we're at the limit of our current facilities, it would mean...
Renegotiating with the bank and higher borrowing costs.
Has someone actually managed to access the systems?
Well, no, but the number of malicious attempts has dramatically risen over the past 12 months.
All unsuccessful?
Yes.
Any more questions for Chris? Nope. Thanks, Chris. So, any other views?
It's not something I have any experience of or frankly understanding.
Until I read this report, I thought fishing was something you did with a rod.
I'm struggling too. It's not clear to me how real this risk is, but I'm concerned about extending the bank facilities.
I'm getting the sense that I'm the only one favouring the first option. Okay, let's go with option 2, but on the basis that the project starts as soon as possible.
Would you have understood these issues better than D. Merton's directors? How many of you would have voted for option 2? Okay. The committee's recommendation that TYSL be reappointed as auditors for the next year was also accepted, despite Roger favouring a change. The committee had been persuaded by the proposal that Sarah Hancock would lead next year's engagement. Now, Sarah had been senior manager when Patrick Lyon took over as engagement partner and had subsequently made partner herself. I shared Liz's belief that this was the ideal combination. A new perspective, but from someone who understood how the company operated.
So, will this official who requested it get his hands on the charitable donation?
I don't know. You did say sales of S1A should be a priority. We could fund the donation by making a payment to Premintel.
I don't know about that. Remember the audit partner asking me questions about my connection to Premintel.
You said he accepted all your assurances. Didn't even ask for any reports. We could make smaller payments, reduce the attention.
It's still risky.
Do we have a choice?
Which means the redesign will take several months and then require retesting. So the launch can't take place in September. Look, it's critical that the new technology is reliable.
But how can the development of S1D get so far and then need a redesign? I mean, why weren't the key elements tested earlier?
The testing was pushed back from April till the end of July, due to the delays in the final development phase.
Why wasn't the board made aware of these problems?
I was assured that it would pass the test. Then we could still have launched on time.
This delay will damage investors' confidence in the company.
What are we saying about a new launch date?
We're now aiming for March of next year.
Right. I wanted us to hold an early discussion on fraud risks to help with the audit planning. And after today, if anyone has concerns about anything they see during the audit, please let me or Joe know, no matter how trivial it might seem. But how much did you and Joe really understand at that meeting? I've seen the presentation, but the cash flow forecast relies much more on S1C sales compared to last year. Take those sales out and we're looking at a material adjustment. All I've said to Alex is that I'll be bringing an independent technology expert to the meeting with the chief tech guy. If I'd known you'd bump into him at the dinner last night, I'd have briefed you. No. I don't know what I'll do if that's his conclusion. Yes. Yes, I'll talk to you before making any decision. Okay.
Reservation for a table for 4 for Tom Noble.
So, given the very subjective nature of the judgments, we really can't accept this substantially increased impairment proposal.
Final profit could be reduced by nearly 30%, and we'd be in breach of our bank covenants.
I hear what you say, I do. But I don't believe I or any other members of the committee can easily ignore the conclusions of an independent expert with extensive experience in technology design.
Our senior tech guys dispute the report's conclusions, and the auditors are being inconsistent. Last year, they accepted the link between the original technology and S1C.
Well, so did my committee. But since reading this report, I've been wondering whether we should have accepted the figures last year quite so quickly. I'll need to consult with other members of the committee on this.
So, what are you working on?
Nothing exciting, just some testing of expenditure.
Oh yeah? I did some of that last year. Anything interesting? You haven't come across a supplier called Premintel, have you?
I don't think so. Why? I checked it. Payments are still being made to Premintel. More than last year, in fact.
Thanks. Maybe don't mention this to Joe.
I sent Charles a copy of the auditor's expert's report, and he believes we must at least ignore future S1C revenue in the forecast.
But Liz, is there really enough in the report to justify such a large adjustment?
Roger, you know as well as I do we can't work backwards from the consequences to form a judgment on the accounting. Yes, the expert's view is subjective. Yes, there's still some reliance on the original technology, but do I now feel comfortable in maintaining the current technology value in this year's accounts? No, I don't.
Do you have a minute? You said we should tell you if we came across anything concerning.
Yes?
Well, payments are still being made this year to Primentel, the company supplying those intelligence reports.
We looked into this last year. Sam flagged up this supplier due to issues with its invoices. Sam also noticed that Richard Dalton's sister was one of Primentel's founding directors, but the sister had resigned before Primentel was engaged.
Did she maintain any ownership in Primentel?
It's unclear. All shares are held by offshore companies.
I briefed Patrick on all of this. He met with Richard, I think he was shown some reports, and Richard assured him that none of his family had any continuing ownership or control over Primentel.
So why is there a problem with the continuing payments?
Primentel's engagement was supposed to have ended, and yet payments have continued, become more frequent.
Well, so they changed their minds, so what?
Well, I couldn't find any reports on last year's file, so I did an internet search of their current directors. While Richard's sister may have resigned, her husband, Richard's brother-in-law, is still one of the directors.
Well, if it isn't the lady that's trying to put me out of the job. I still don't believe that write-down was necessary. And your new senior partner had no problem accepting the valuation. Let's hope you've no more nasty surprises. If there's anything else I can help you with.
There is one thing I might need to ask you about.
Really? Well, I'm here now.
I don't think this is the right place.
Nonsense. Ask away, please.
It's about Primentel, that intel company.
Yes.
We've been struggling to get hold of any of the reports produced by Primentel this year. Tom Noble is away, and neither his secretary nor yours know where the reports are.
Well, that's restricted access. They contain very sensitive information.
We'll need to see them in order to close down that inquiry.
I understand. I'll get them sent over.
I did have another question. About your family's links to Primentel?
I told Patrick that all ended some time ago.
I know, but I understand your brother-in-law remains one of the directors.
That's not true. My ex-brother-in-law, Mike, he's still a director. Mike's good at gathering info that you need on your competitors, but, well, as my sister will tell you, he's a complete nightmare to live with. After they split, I got to know Mike's team really well and saw how good they were at gathering intelligence. Samantha, good to see you.
Richard, leaving so early?
Well, I was having a good time, till your protege started her interrogation.
Really?
The assurance I gave you about my family having no connection with Primentel. Well, apparently, it's not good enough for her. She doesn't believe that the reports exist until she sees them. What gets me most is that Primentel isn't even a major supplier. So why so much time being wasted on this? After the write-down fiasco, I'm beginning to wonder whether she really knows what she's doing.
Hi.
What happened between you and Richard on Tuesday evening?
Nothing. He was in a foul mood. It's no wonder. Have you seen this morning's announcement? They've had to postpone the launch again until September. The share price has taken a big hit.
Really? When I caught up with him, he said he was tired of being interrogated.
He asked me whether he could help with anything.
And you asked him about Primentel?
I'd been told the brother-in-law was still a director, but it turns out that he and Richard's sister divorced some time ago.
Why didn't you talk to me first? I got assurances about this last year.
You didn't know about the brother-in-law back then. I had to ask him, Not disclosing a family interest would be an integrity concern.
So the issue's now closed?
Not quite. Did you see any reports last year? There are no copies on file. My interrogation has led to us receiving a pile of Premintel reports this morning, which are being reviewed. I've added an extra line in this management rep letter for Richard to confirm there's no continuing family interest in Premintel.
Really?
There's been a recent connection, and Premintel's ownership is unclear. If there's no interest, he shouldn't have a problem.
Are you sure you really needed that? With the launch being postponed again, he's going to be feeling a great deal of pressure.
I have to go through all these reports.
I'm not really sure what I'm looking for. Joe didn't have much time to discuss that. Don't be like that. I'll try and get there as soon as I can. Bye.
Did you get through them all? Yep. They all check out? Any issues? Make sure you do a note for the file. I didn't expect to see you in today. How's your mother?
Oh, much better, thanks. Sorry for bailing. Did you want me to do anything more on that Premintel issue?
Sarah said comfortable with that. Turns out your research wasn't completely accurate. That director is Richard's ex-brother-in-law.
Really? I'm sorry, that was my fault. Did you want me to have a look at the Premintel reports?
No need. Dan reviewed them last night. Sarah said she wanted confirmation this morning before she signs off. You just concentrate on tidying up any loose ends.
I just don't know how much we can rely on the S1D launch. It's got to be a big success if we're going to hit this year's forecast.
Definitely going to happen this September.
It's got to. Or it won't just be the tech boys getting fired. Roger already blames me for the delay. Last year's results haven't helped.
Sounds like you could do with some good news. We've made the short list for that big tender in New Genaria.
What's the catch?
The official wants an incentive to choose our system. He prefers someone else's. I thought we could use Premintel again.
That's not going to work. I don't believe this. Another crooked official. There's 2,000 people in this company. Their jobs rely on us bringing in these contracts. You know, politicians, they just don't realise it.
It's all right. I know what I can do.
Hey, what brings you down here?
I've had a tech security firm recommended to me. I was hoping you might be able to use them.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've already awarded all the contracts for Phase 3.
That's a shame. I was really hoping you'd be able to use them.
Where did you get this?
Here, you got another baby on the way too. Exciting times. So can we start this conversation again? I've had a cybersecurity firm recommended to me. I'll send that email. Bye-bye. So we sealed another deal?
Great.
Mind if I call Richard, let him know?
So my manager was chasing payment on the new Genaria contract, and he was told that they were suspending all payments. The official who signed it has been suspended on suspicion of taking bribes on 2 other contracts.
What?
They're not paying until they've investigated all contracts, including ours.
Well, I find nothing wrong with ours.
What I can't understand is why we didn't use our normal agent on this deal. And why weren't due diligence checks carried out on the new agent?
Richard, we need to talk.
I don't know what I'm supposed to have done wrong.
Asking Tom whether he's been paying bribes for starters.
I didn't. I asked him why he'd left our usual agent out of this deal and how much he could trust the new one.
No one's made any allegation against us. Lots of companies have had their payments suspended.
I still think we should be flagging this up to the Audit and Risk Committee.
There's nothing to report. Do you know how long it took me to talk down Tom? He's threatening to quit if he ends up the subject of some witch hunt. And you know how many good deals he brings into this company. We wait.
No pressure then. How many of you would have reported it to the Audit and Risk Committee at this time? That's very interesting.
But no allegation has been made. It's a serious step to start an investigation into a senior manager. I think we should wait.
Do you agree?
No, I don't. If this official's been seeking bribes on other contracts, then why not us too? And why didn't we use our normal agent?
I agree with Charles. I also think we need some assurance on this in case the media pick it up. Can internal audit investigate this?
Shouldn't we use external lawyers and forensic accountants?
I suggested an internal review because we need to act quickly and discreetly.
If we are going to investigate, we should bring in the specialists. A lot of the work can be done remotely and discreetly.
Okay. External it is then.
Do you know what it feels like to be questioned for hours like a suspected criminal? I thought we agreed the committee didn't need to know unless an allegation was made.
We didn't agree anything. That was what you said.
And I was right, wasn't I? The lawyers didn't find any irregularities with the contract, no issues with the agents, no suspicious outflows of money authorised by Tom at the time.
I still think they needed to know.
Even with all the damage it's caused. Tom thinks that it'd be difficult for him to remain here with all these rumours that are flying around.
Our lawyers say we could sue to enforce the contract, but that all 4 countries have a very strong defence due to the S1D launch delay. Chances are we'd lose.
So, 4 down. Out of the remaining 11 pre-orders, how many have been reconfirmed?
5 for definite. We're still waiting for reconfirmation from the other 6.
Alex, we'll need a reforecast on S1D revenues for the board meeting. Are we getting any understanding as to why the orders are being cancelled?
2 of the countries have said they're going to produce their own. But it's just not credible they haven't the expertise.
That's if they are developing their own.
Richard, it's Chris. We need a meeting. It's unclear what was copied, but access was gained to the design database on 4 occasions on the 23rd of February, including access to the blueprints for S1D.
I thought the database defenses had been upgraded in the first phase.
They were, but the attackers didn't gain entry directly. They went in via a subsidiary of ours and their finance systems. From there, they were then able to navigate into our central finance system and create their own internal login credentials. Those IDs gave them access to all systems, including the design database.
Why didn't we know about this in February?
It was a sophisticated attack. The credentials that they created matched our in-house format, so the auto-detection software didn't flag the attack.
Have we upgraded those defenses since?
Yes. If they had attacked 1 month later, then that entry point would have been strengthened in the next phase of the project.
We don't know whether the cancellations are linked to the attack, how many more will cancel, and how hard profits will be hit. But we need to consider making a disclosure to the market and what it should say.
Aside from the S1D cancellations, are there any other problems we should know about?
My other headaches are never-ending IT project. The costs are going up at a pace.
Well, it is an IT project.
Yes, but the Phase 3 overruns are well beyond our contingency. I've told Chris that he needs to flag up much earlier any significant overspend. Hi, Amisha. Listen, how extensive was the investigators' review of payments? No wider? No, that's all I needed. I'll call you later. Hi, can you get me please all invoices and contracts on the IT project? Thank you.
That issue with the IT project invoice. I raised it in my meeting with Chris this morning. He assured me that the work on the main hub ID system was carried out by that contractor.
Well, that's strange. The manager I spoke to was pretty certain that work was being done by an internal team. One of Chris's cost-saving measures, he said.
Sounds like he was mistaken. Hardly surprising given how many different work streams they've had.
But he was so sure.
But the work's been done. The supplier's on the approved list.
So what do we do now?
Nothing. Remember Premintel? We've got the assurance from a senior manager, so write it up and move on. Plenty more to be getting on with.
I'm going to be home in 20 minutes. I just need to check something out for work. Okay.
Sorry about the short notice and cryptic messages, but this couldn't wait. We've got concerns about some of the payments on the IT project.
You're not alone. I've just been going through some of these contracts and invoices. A number of Phase 3 contractors don't appear to have much of a trading history. I was just about to get internal audit involved.
That may not be necessary.
The investigators have reviewed all the IT contracts. They've identified 5 payments made to 3 bogus suppliers, all controlled by Tom's associates. The police have now started their own investigation, so we can't interview him. Our lawyers have been told, off the record, that a payment from one of these companies was made to an account believed to be controlled by the official in New Genaria.
What about Chris?
Well, he's cooperated fully. He seems to have been blackmailed by Tom over an extramarital affair. He says he thought it was a one-off and then was asked to make more payments. He claims to know nothing about the bribes, and there's no evidence to suggest he knew or that he took any of the money himself. Nevertheless, the lawyers still recommend that we terminate his contract.
Well, 2 of the larger payments were co-authorized by Richard. He'd have been anxious to keep revenue coming in to keep the stock price high.
Well, Richard pointed out, correctly, that he's authorised other large payments on the IT project to genuine suppliers and that he couldn't have known that these suppliers were bogus. He denies any knowledge of the bribes or the fraud, and nothing suggests otherwise in a review of his emails.
And has the investigation now concluded?
All of the work in the scope set by the committee has been completed. However, the lawyers think they should review transactions before and outside of the IT project to get assurance that there's nothing else.
Is that really necessary? Is there any evidence to suggest that bribes were paid earlier or funded outside the IT project?
A forensic review was made of all payments made by the company over the last 5 years, looking for other bogus suppliers, and no other companies were identified.
I can't see any reason then to extend. The costs are enormous already.
Well, I don't think we can be criticised for stopping here. Agreed? Thank you.
Well, at least it draws a line under the whole sorry business. What's up? I thought you'd be happier.
I've been uncomfortable since hearing about Richard signing off on 2 of the larger payments. It made me wonder about those payments he authorised to Prem Intel for reports used by Tom.
But you satisfied yourself about the relationship with Prem Intel. And you got hold of all the reports and had them checked. And you got Richard to sign a rep letter confirming that there was no family link.
I took it out. You said...
Doesn't matter. He told us both there was no link and there was no evidence suggesting otherwise.
But what if the bribes started earlier? Were funded by payments to genuine suppliers? I think I should discuss this with Liz.
Think carefully before doing that. If you point them in the direction of the relationship with Prem Intel and there's no problem, you'll be criticised for extending an expensive investigation. If it turns out there was a problem with those payments, then the next questions you're going to be asked are why you didn't realise they weren't genuine, and why the rep letter didn't deal with the family connection.
The share price had just recovered from the profits warning when Tom Noble, Director of Global Sales, was arrested on suspicion of bribery. Well, I had a dilemma. I still had the feeling there was more, which hadn't yet come out. I couldn't stop wondering whether Richard had also been involved. He'd been so adamant the new Genaria deal shouldn't be reported to the committee, and his bonuses were tied to the share price. And I wondered why our chief tech guy had quit so soon after that write-down. I'd heard the rumors. So what did I do? I followed my instincts.